Thus, for opening a sutra, the unsurpassed profound and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in hundreds of millions of aeons. I now see and hear it, receive and uphold it, and I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning. The Flower Adornment Sutra, Chapter 1, The Wondrous Adornments of the Rulers of the Worlds, translated in the Tang Dynasty by Tripitaka Master Shramana Shikshananda of Khotan. Sutra. Moreover, Dragon King Virupaksha gained a passage into liberation, of dispelling the burning agony of all those in the path of dragons. Dragon King Sagara gained a passage into liberation, of manifesting the bodies of limitless sentient beings by transforming his own dragon body in a single thought. Dragon King Banner of Cloud-like Sounds gained a passage into liberation, of uttering the ocean of the Buddha's boundless names with a refreshing sound amidst all destinies. Dragon King Moth of Flame gained a passage into liberation, of universally appearing in boundlessly many Buddha lands, differently established. Dragon King Blazing Eyes gained a passage into liberation, of learning how the Thus Come One's kind sympathy dispels coverings and fetters of all sentient beings, hatred and delusion. Dragon King Banner of Clouds gained a passage into liberation, of revealing to all sentient beings the sea of great happiness, joy, and blessings. Dragon King Takshaka gained a passage into liberation, of eradicating all fears by means of a pure sound that rescues and protects. Dragon King Boundless Stride gained a passage into liberation, of manifesting all Buddhist bodies as well as the successive stages of their dwelling. Dragon King Swift Pure Color gained a passage into liberation, of giving rise to the ocean of all sentient beings' great aspirations and happiness. Dragon King Booming Sounds Carrying Everywhere gained a passage into liberation, of manifesting all impartial, delightful, and unobstructed sounds. Dragon King Free from Burning Afflictions gained a passage into liberation, of a cloud of great compassion that overspreads everywhere, eradicating all the suffering in the world. At that time, Dragon King Virupaksha received the Buddha's awesome spiritual power, universally contemplated the dragon multitudes, and spoke the following verse. Behold the Thus Come One's Dharma, ever thus, benefiting all sentient beings. With the power of immense kindness and empathy, he rescues those who have fallen into the fearsome paths. Sentient beings with all their differences manifest completely on a single hair's tip. His spiritual transformations fill the world. Thus Sagara contemplates the Buddha. The Buddha, with the unlimited strength of his spiritual powers, extensively proclaims his epithets equal to the number of sentient beings. He enables all to hear according to their likes and pleasures. Cloud-like sounds enlightens thus and understands multitudes of measureless boundless lands. The Buddha encompasses in a single paw. The Thus Come One then sits, serene, amidst the assemblies. So perceives Mouth of Flame Dragon. The angry, hateful thoughts of all sentient beings, the fetters, coverings, and delusions, as deep as the ocean, are completely eradicated by the Thus Come One's sympathy. Blazing Dragon observes this with lucidity. The power of all sentient beings' blessings and virtue completely manifests within the Buddha's paws. Now they return to the ocean of great blessings. So contemplates Banner of High Clouds. The Buddha's paw released the light of wisdom. His brilliance proclaims wondrous sounds that reach everywhere. Those who hear cast out worry and fear. Takshaka Dragon awakens to this path. All the Thus Come Ones of the 3 periods of time Their lands, adornments, and the sequence of their aeons manifest within the body of the Buddha. Vast strikes seize the strength of these spiritual powers. I observed the thus come one's past practices, how he made offerings to the oceans of all Buddhas, how his happiness and joy increased. Thus enters swift dragon. Sentient beings oppressed in the realms of existence, drift and flounder in karma and delusion with no one to save them. The Buddha liberates them with great compassion. Great dragon free from burning realizes thus. Moreover, Yaksha king Vajravana gained a passage into liberation, of rescuing and protecting evil sentient beings with boundless skill in means. Yaksha king Sovereign Sound gained a passage into liberation, of universally contemplating sentient beings, rescuing them with expedience. Yaksha king sternly holding weapons and insignia gain a passage into liberation, of nourishing and benefiting all emaciated and evil sentient beings. Yaksha king great wisdom gain a passage into liberation, of praising the ocean of the meritorious virtues of all sages. Yaksha king Lord Flaming Eyes gain a passage into liberation, of universally contemplating all sentient beings with the wisdom of great compassion. Yaksha king Vajra Eyes gain a passage into liberation, of using various skill and means to bring benefit and peace to all beings. Yaksha king Robust Arms gain a passage into liberation, of universally entering the significance of all dharmas. Yaksha king bravely opposing great armies gain a passage into liberation, of guarding all sentient beings, so that they dwell industriously in the way. Yaksha king abundant resources and wealth gain a passage into liberation, of increasing the accumulated blessings and virtue of all sentient beings, thus enabling them to experience perpetual joy. Yaksha king power to topple high mountains gain a passage into liberation, of easily recalling and producing the wisdom light of the Buddha's power. At that time, the great Yaksha king White Renown received the Buddha's awesome spiritual power, universally contemplated the Yaksha multitudes, and spoke the following verse. The offenses of sentient beings are severe and terrifying. For hundreds of thousands of aeons, they fail to see the Buddha. Drifting in life and death, they undergo innumerable sufferings. Wishing to save them, the Buddha appears in the world. The thus come one saves and protects all in the world. He manifests before all sentient beings to quell their misery in the dreadful paths of transmigration. Sound King enters thus this Dharma door. Evil karma is a heavy obstacle for sentient beings. The Buddha unveils wonderful principles to help them understand. He is as a bright lamp, illumining the world. Sternly holding insignia, sees this Dharma. Across the oceans of aeons, Buddhas cultivate every practice and praise all Buddhas of the 10 directions. Hence their own lofty repute spreads far and wide. King Wisdom understands thus. The Buddha's wisdom is boundless like the void. His Dharma body is vast, great, and inconceivable. Accordingly, he appears throughout the 10 directions. Flaming Eyes contemplates thus. In the midst of all destinies, he proclaims with wondrous sound, speaking Dharma to benefit the flocks of beings. Wherever his sound reaches, the myriad sufferings end. Vajra Eyes enters this expedient means. All profound, vast principles can be expressed in a single phrase by the thus come one. Such doctrines pervasively fill the worlds. King Robust's wisdom is enlightened thus. Sentient beings abide in deviant ways. the Buddha reveals the inconceivable proper path, making everyone in the world into a vessel of the Dharma. Bravely opposing armies, enlightens thus and understands. All the blessed acts done in any world are illumined by the Buddha's light. The ocean of the Buddha's wisdom cannot be fathomed. Abundant wealth is liberated thus. Recollecting how, during countless aeons in the past, the Buddha cultivated the 10 powers and was able to perfect every power, thus King Lofty Banner understands. Moreover, Mahoraga King Kind Wisdom gained a passage into liberation of helping sentient beings amass merit and virtue by using all the experience of spiritual powers. Mahoraga King Clear, Majestic Sound gained a passage into liberation of enabling sentient beings to eradicate their afflictions and gain a cool, clear joy. Mahoraga King Supreme Wisdom and Ornamented Top Knot gain a passage into liberation of universally leading sentient beings of wholesome and unwholesome insights to enter pure dharmas. Mahoraga King Lord Wondrous Eyes gain a passage into liberation of understanding and arriving at total non-attachment to blessings and virtue, ease and comfort, and impartiality. Mahoraga King Lamb-like Banner gain a passage into liberation of instructing all sentient beings, causing them to leave dark and frightening paths. Mahoraga King Supreme-like Banner gain a passage into liberation of rejoicing in the knowledge of all Buddha's merit and virtue. Mahoraga King Lion Chest gain a passage into liberation with audacious strength, acting as a savior for all sentient beings. Mahoraga King Sound of Many Wondrous Adornments gain a passage into liberation of causing sentient beings to give rise to boundless happiness and joy according to their recollection. Mahoraga King Sumeru Chest gain a passage into liberation of remaining determined and unmoving in the face of all conditions until he reaches the other shore satisfactorily. Mahoraga King Adorable Brightness gain a passage into liberation of revealing a path of equality for sentient beings who are not equally alike. At that time, Mahoraga King Awesome Light of Kind Wisdom received the Buddha's awesome spiritual power, universally contemplated the Mahoraga multitudes, and spoke the following verse. You should contemplate the thus come one's pure nature, universally manifesting awesome light to benefit all kinds of creatures. He reveals the path of sweet dew, giving rise to their clarity and coolness. The myriad sufferings disappear forever with nothing to rely upon. All sentient beings inhabit the ocean of existence, ensnaring and shrouding themselves with the delusion of evil karma. He shows them the practice of still and quiet dharmas. Awesome Sound, undefiled, deftly understands thus. The Buddha's peerless wisdom defies conceptualization. He thoroughly knows the mind of every sentient being. He clarifies pure dharmas for them. The mind of ornamented top knot is enlightened thus. Measureless Buddhas appear in the world, becoming fields of blessings for all sentient beings. Their vast oceans of blessings are unfathomably profound. Great King Wondrous Eyes completely sees thus. All sentient beings dread and fear suffering. The Buddhas arrive before them, saving and protecting them, no matter where they are throughout the Dharma realm and space. Thus, lamb-like banner pauses in this state. The meritorious virtue within the single pore of a Buddha could not be measured by the united efforts of all beings in this world. It is boundless and inexhaustible like space. Vast, great like banner thus perceives. The thus come one penetrates all dharmas, brightly illuminating their nature. Unshaken he remains like Mount Sumeru. Lion chest thus enters this dharma door. Throughout vast aeons in the past, the Buddha amassed an ocean of happiness bottomless in depth. Hence those who see him are delighted without exception. Sound of adornments so enters this dharma. When one understands the Dharma realm to be formless, the ocean of paramitas is thoroughly perfected. Magnificent light universally rescues sentient beings. Chest like a mountain knows this, expedient thus. Contemplate the thus come one's powers of self-mastery. Consistently he appears everywhere in the 10 directions. All sentient beings are illumined and led to enlightenment. Wondrous brightness enters this proficiently. Moreover, Kinara King, bright heaven of kind wisdom, gain a passage into liberation of universally generating happiness and joy through all deeds. Kinara King, wonderful floral banner, gain a passage into liberation of experiencing unsurpassed bliss of Dharma, bestowing peace and joy upon all. Kinara King, assorted adornments, gain a passage into liberation of achieving a treasury of tremendous pure faith and understanding resulting from the perfection of all merit and virtue. Kinara King, delightful roar, gain a passage into liberation of constantly emitting every delightful sound, thereby dispelling the sorrow and terror of all who hear. Kinara King, brilliance of bejeweled trees, gain a passage into liberation of establishing sentient beings in great compassion, enabling them to enlighten to the original conditions. Kinara King, everywhere delighting the beholder, gain a passage into liberation of manifesting bodies of a myriad wondrous forms. Kinara King, adornment with supreme light, gain a passage into liberation of understanding the karma that leads to perfecting all sorts of supreme adornments. Kinara King, exquisite flower banner, gain a passage into liberation of capably contemplating the retributions that result from all worldly karma. Kinara King, earth-shaking power, gain a passage into liberation of constantly embarking on any deeds to benefit sentient beings. Kinara King, awesome and brave Lord, gain a passage into liberation of fully understanding the thoughts of all Kinaras and cleverly gathering in and directing them. At that time, Kinara King, bright heaven of kind wisdom, received the Buddha's awesome spiritual power, universally contemplated the Kinara multitudes, and spoke the following verse. All peace and joy in the world arise from seeing the Buddha. The teacher benefits all sentient beings. He is a place of universal refuge, saving and protecting them. He proliferates all happiness and joy. All in the world experience them without end. No one ever sees the Buddha in vain. Floral banner is enlightened to this. The ocean of the Buddha's merit and virtue is infinite. Its boundaries cannot be found. His light shines throughout the 10 directions. This is the liberation of King Adornment. The thus come one's magnificent sound issues forth always, revealing the true Dharma of living glories behind. When sentient beings hear, they rejoice with delight. Raw believes and thus accepts. I contemplate the thus come one's power of self-mastery, arising from his cultivation in the past. With great compassion, he rescues beings, leading them to purity. King Bejeweled tree enlightens thus and enters. To see and hear the thus come one is difficult indeed. Only after millions of aeons do sentient beings encounter him. His many marks are adorned and complete. King delighting the beholder sees thus. You may observe the great wisdom of the Thus Come One. He universally responds to the wishes of all sentient beings. He proclaims all paths of wisdom without exception. Supreme Adornment understands thus. The sea of karma is unimaginably wide. Sentient beings' suffering and joy arise from it. The Buddha demonstrates these truths. King Flower Banner is thus aware. The Buddha's spiritual powers are perpetual. In all directions the earth trembles eternally. Although no sentient beings apprehend, immense power constantly perceives and understands these things. Among the multitudes, the Buddha demonstrates his spiritual powers. His resplendent brilliance enlightens them. He reveals all the states of the Thus Come One. Awesome and brave Lord thus observes. Moreover, Garuda, King Swift and Powerful, gain a passage into liberation, of universally contemplating the realms of sentient beings, with an eye free from attachment and obstruction. Garuda King, indestructible jeweled crest, gain a passage into liberation, of universally dwelling throughout the Dharma realm, to teach and transform sentient beings. Garuda King, pure swiftness, gain a passage into liberation, of achieving a universal strength, of vigor that reach paramita. Garuda King, adorned with steadfast resolve, gain a passage into liberation, of developing a courageous might that brought entry into a state of the Thus Come One. Garuda King, great ocean's power to gather and sustain, gain a passage into liberation, of entering the immense ocean of wisdom, of a Buddhist conduct. Garuda King, pure light of solid Dharma, gain a passage into liberation, of helping countless sentient beings to each perfect his unique wisdom. Garuda King, wondrously adorned, crown call, gain a passage into liberation, of adorning the citadels of the Buddha Dharma. Garuda King, adroitly appearing everywhere, gain a passage into liberation, of realizing the indestructible power of equanimity. Garuda King, universally contemplating the oceans, gain a passage into liberation, of thoroughly knowing the forms of life and manifesting for them accordingly. Garuda King, dragon voice and immense eyes, gain a passage into liberation, of having the wisdom to understand all sentient beings' activities of birth and death. At that time, Garuda King, swift and powerful, received the Buddha's awesome spiritual power, universally contemplated the multitudes of Garudas, and spoke the following verse. The Buddha's eyes are boundlessly large. He sees all lands throughout the 10 directions. The sentient beings within them are innumerable. Displaying great spiritual penetrations, he tames them all. The Buddha's powers of spiritual penetrations are unobstructed. He sits under the tree of enlightenment in all the 10 directions, proclaiming Dharma like clouds filling every place. Jeweled crest hears thus and resists not. In the past, the Buddha cultivated various practices, universally purifying the vast great paramitas, making offerings to all the Thus Come Ones. King Swiftness thus deeply believes and understands. In each and every pore of the Thus Come One, boundless practices universally appear in a single thought. Such inconceivable states of the Buddha as these, steadfast adornment sees completely and clearly. The Buddhist practices are extensive and inconceivable. Sentient beings cannot plumb their depths. The ocean of the teacher's merit, virtue, and wisdom is the place of practice for King Sustain. The Thus Come One's limitless light of wisdom can destroy the net of sentient beings' delusion, saving and protecting those in all worlds. Solid Dharma maintains thus and speaks. The citadels of Dharma are infinitely broad. with more and various gates that can be counted. The dust-come one appears in the world to open them wide. Wondrous call crown, understands and enters thus. The Dharma bodies of all Buddhists are one, through suchness equal and undifferentiated. The Buddha through this power constantly abide. King adroitly appearing everywhere speaks of this fully. In the past, the Buddha gathered in beings in all realms, radiating light throughout all worlds. Using various expedients, he displayed taming and subduing. Contemplating the oceans awakens to this supreme Dharma door. The Buddha regards all lands as settled on the sea of karma. He rains down Dharma everywhere upon it. Dragon voice is liberated thus. Moreover, Asura King Rahu gained a passage into liberation, of appearing as a supreme and honored host for great assemblies. Asura King Vimachitra gained a passage into liberation, of making appear limitlessly many aeons. Asura King Clever Magical Illusions gained a passage into liberation, of eradicating all sentient beings' sufferings and making them pure. Asura King Great Retinue gained a passage into liberation, of adorning oneself through the cultivation of all ascetic practices. Asura King Balin gained a passage into liberation, of boundless states of quaking in the 10 directions. Asura King Pervasive Illumination gained a passage into liberation, of using all sorts of expedients to securely settle all sentient beings. Asura King Solid Practices and Wondrous Adornment gained a passage into liberation, of universally amassing indestructible good roots and purifying all tainted attachments. Asura King Vast Wisdom regarding causes gained a passage into liberation, of being a lord endowed with power of great compassion and free from doubt. Asura King displaying supreme virtue gained a passage into liberation, of causing beings everywhere to cultivate good roots by seeing, attending upon, and making offerings to Buddhas. Asura King Splendid Voice gained a passage into liberation, of the practice of universally entering all destinies with absolute impartiality. At that time, Asura King Rahu received the Buddha's awesome spiritual power, universally contemplated the multitudes of asuras, and spoke the following verse. Among the teeming multitudes in the 10 directions, the Buddha is unique by far. His brilliance lights up space, universally appearing before all sentient beings. The Buddha lands in hundreds of millions of aeons, clearly appear in the space of an instant, radiating light to transform beings, reaching all without exception. Vimachitra profoundly praises and rejoices in all that. The realm of the dust-come one is unparalleled, perpetually benefiting by means of various Dharma doors. He quells the sufferings of sentient beings. Thus King Ambara sees that. He practiced ascetic conduct from limitless aeons, benefiting sentient beings and purifying worlds. Accordingly, Muni's wisdom is fully accomplished. King Great Retinue sees the Buddha thus. Unimpeded, incomparable, great spiritual penetrations, causing quaking in all lands throughout the 10 directions, without giving rise to surprise or alarm. Great strength comprehends thus. The Buddha appears in the world to save all sentient beings. He completely reveals the path to all wisdom, enabling all beings to cast off suffering and attain bliss. Pervasive illumination expounds this meaning. All oceans of blessings in the world, universally purified, manifest through the Buddha's strength. The Buddha reveals the place of liberation. Solid practices and adornment enters this passage. The Buddha's peerless body of great compassion travels freely everywhere, visible to all. Like a shadow or a reflection, it appears in the world. Wisdom regarding causes proclaims this merit and virtue. With unequaled rare and great spiritual penetrations, he displays bodies throughout the Dharma realm. Each is seated beneath the Bodhi tree. Supreme virtue pronounces this meaning. The thus come one has cultivated practices throughout the 3 periods of time, passing through all destinies on the turning wheel. He frees all beings from suffering, omitting none. King's splendid sound praises thus. Moreover, day-ruling spirit making palaces appear, gain a passage into liberation, of universally entering all worlds. Day-ruling spirit exuding fragrance of wisdom, gain a passage into liberation, of universally contemplating all sentient beings, benefiting them, making them happy and content. Day-ruling spirit adornment with supreme bliss, gain a passage into liberation, of being able to emit light of boundlessly many likable dharmas. Day-ruling spirit fragrant flowers wondrous light, gain a passage into liberation, of inspiring pure faith and understanding in the minds of numberless beings. Day-ruling spirit everywhere collecting wonderful medicines, gain a passage into liberation, of developing the power of universal radiance through amassing adornments. Day-ruling spirit happy eyes creating joy, gain a passage into liberation, of universally enlightening both suffering and happy sentient beings, so that they obtain the bliss of Dharma. Day-ruling spirit contemplating all directions and universally manifesting, gain a passage into liberation, of manifesting a variety of bodies in the Dharma realms of the 10 directions. Day-ruling spirit awesome power of great compassion, gain a passage into liberation, of saving and protecting all beings, enabling them to be happy and secure. Day-ruling spirit illumination of good roots, gain a passage into liberation, of generating an all-pervasive power, of delightful and perfect meritorious virtue. Day-ruling spirit lovely flower garlands, gain a passage into liberation, of having one's renown spread far and wide, benefiting all beings who see or hear one. At that time, day-ruling spirit making palaces appear, receiving the Buddha's awesome spiritual power, contemplated the multitudes of day-ruling spirits, and spoke the following verse. Like space, the Buddha's wisdom is inexhaustible. His light shines universally throughout the 10 directions. He completely knows the mental stirrings of all sentient beings. There are no worlds he fails to enter. With all sentient beings, he knows the preferences of each. Accordingly, he speaks oceans of dharmas for them. The far-reaching phrases and meaning each differ, one from another. Spirit replete with wisdom completely sees thus. The Buddha emits light illumining the world. Those who see and hear rejoice. Knowing it will not be in vain. He reveals the deep, vast place of still quiescence. The mind of adornment with bliss awakens thus, and understands. The Buddha rains down Dharma, boundless in extent, which brings happiness to all who perceive it. Hence supreme roots of goodness issue forth, wondrous light awakens thus. The Dharma doors that bring universal entry, and the power of awakening, cultivated since distant aeons past, are all purified. All this done to draw in sentient beings. Spirit wondrous medicine understands thus. With various expedients he transforms sentient beings. All who see or hear do benefit, are happy jumped for joy. Day spirit wondrous eyes sees thus. His 10 powers appear in response throughout the worlds, pervading the 10 directions of the Dharma realm. His substance neither exists nor does not. Spirit contemplating all directions enters thus. Sentient beings flow and turn in danger and difficulty. In pity the thus come one appears in the world. enabling them to wipe out suffering of every kind. Power of compassion dwells in this passage to liberation. Sentient beings are shrouded in darkness, sunken in endless night. The Buddha speaks Dharma for them, ushering the dawn of understanding, so that they may attain bliss and vanquish their sufferings. Spirit great light of goodness enters this door. The Tathagata's blessings resemble the void. From them all blessings in the world flow forth. Nothing done is ever done in vain. Flower garlands attains this liberation. Moreover, night ruling spirit, pure light of universal virtue, gain a passage into liberation of great valor resulting from the bliss of still dhyana samadhi. Night ruling spirit, happy eyes observing the world, gain a passage into liberation of characteristics of extensive purity and enchanting meritorious virtue. Night ruling spirit, protecting the world's essence and energy, gain a passage into liberation of universally manifesting in worlds to tame sentient beings. Night ruling spirit, sound of the tranquil sea, gain a passage into liberation of accumulating immense happiness in the mind. Night ruling spirit, universally manifesting good auspices, gain a passage into liberation of being profoundly carefree and endowed with delightful speech and sound. Night ruling spirit, universally blooming flowers of trees, gain a passage into liberation of creating a treasury of measureless merriment and fullness of light. Night ruling spirit, impartially protecting and nurturing, gain a passage into liberation of enlightening sentient beings and bringing their good roots to maturity. Night ruling spirit, joy of playful roaming, gain a passage into liberation of using boundless kindness that rescues and protects beings. Night ruling spirit, perpetually blissful faculties, gain a passage into liberation of possessing great compassion that displays adornments everywhere. Night ruling spirit, displaying pure blessings, gain a passage into liberation of universally fulfilling the wishes of all sentient beings. At that time, night ruling spirit, pure light of universal virtue, received the Buddha's awesome spiritual power, contemplated the multitudes of night ruling spirits, and spoke the following verse. You should contemplate the Buddha's practices. They are vast like space, characterized by stillness. He has completely purified the shoreless ocean of desires. Immaculate and adorned, he illuminates the 10 directions. All beings in all worlds delight in seeing him. Though in an ocean of countless aeons he may be seen but once, with great compassion he is mindful of all beings, never failing to reach anyone. This passage to liberation, observing the world perceives. In the past, the Buddha cultivated an ocean of joy, immense, boundless, and unfathomable. Therefore, those who see him all rejoice. Tranquil sound understands thus. The Tathagata's realm cannot be measured. Though silent, he speaks throughout the 10 directions. He causes purity to rise in the minds of all beings. The night spirit Ori hears and rejoices thus. The Buddha, while in the midst of beings bereft of blessings, is adorned with great blessings. Majestically he illuminates, demonstrating the Dharma of still quiescence, free from dust. Spirit universally blooming flowers awakens to this truth. He displays great spiritual powers throughout the 10 directions, taming and subduing all sentient beings. All see his various features and forms. Spirit protecting and nurturing contemplates thus. In thought after thought in the past, the Tathagata purified the ocean of expedience and compassion to save the world. There is no place he fails to go. Blessings and joy spirit is liberated thus. Sentient beings are ignorant, forever muddled and murky. Their stubborn poisoned minds are terrifying indeed. The Tathagata kindly appears in the world for their sakes. The spirit quelling enmity awakens and rejoices thus. In the past, the Buddha cultivated, for the sake of all sentient beings, that their longings could be completely satisfied. Accordingly, he accomplished the marks of merit and virtue. Spirit displaying blessings enters thus. Moreover, direction ruling spirit, pervasively dwelling everywhere, gain a passage into liberation of universally being able to rescue and protect beings. Direction ruling spirit, universally displaying brilliance, gain a passage into liberation of transforming all sentient beings and helping them to achieve their karma of spiritual penetrations. Direction ruling spirit, adorned with luminous practices, gain a passage into liberation of emitting a great light that demolishes all obstacles of darkness and brings forth bliss. Direction ruling spirit traveling freely everywhere, gain a passage into liberation of universally manifesting everywhere without the effort being in vain. Direction ruling spirit, forever severing delusions, gain a passage into liberation of revealing as many epithets as there are sentient beings, giving rise to meritorious virtues. Direction ruling spirit, pervasively roaming in the pure void, gain a passage into liberation of constantly producing wondrous sounds, bringing joy to all who hear. Direction ruling spirit, cloud-like banner of resonant sound, gain a passage into liberation of bringing rain everywhere like a dragon, delighting sentient beings. Direction ruling spirit, called eyes unconfused, gain a passage into liberation of non-differentiating sovereign power to make appear the karma of all sentient beings. Direction ruling spirit, universally observing the karma of worlds, gain a passage into liberation of observing the various karma of beings in all destinies. Direction ruling spirit, everywhere touring, gain a passage into liberation of giving rise to joy in all sentient beings by bringing all their endeavors to fruition. At that time, direction ruling spirit, pervasively dwelling everywhere, received the Buddha's awesome spiritual power, universally contemplated the multitudes of direction ruling spirits, and spoke the following verse. The Tathagata appears in the world, comfortable and carefree, to teach and transform the multitudes of beings, everywhere revealing Dharma doors for all to enter and enlighten to, so all will accomplish unsurpassed wisdom, with limitless spiritual penetrations, as many as sentient beings. In accordance with their preferences, he reveals all characteristics. Hence those who see him all escape from suffering. Thus is the power of liberation, of displaying brilliant spirit. The Buddha in the sea of beings, who are obstructed by obscurity, reveals to them the brilliant torch of Dharma. Its light shines everywhere and is seen by all. Adorned with practice is liberated thus. Endowed with all the various sounds in the world, he universally turns the Dharma wheel, and no one fails to understand. Sentient beings hear and cease to be afflicted. Spirit traveling everywhere awakens thus. For all the names in the world, as many names of Buddhas emerge, freeing sentient beings completely from ignorance and delusion. Spirit severing confusion practices thus. If there are sentient beings who come before the Buddha and hear the Tathagata's sublime wondrous sound, great delight will not fail to fill their minds. Pervasively roaming in the void awakens to this Dharma. The Buddha, in the space of every kashana, universally reigns great and boundless Dharma reign, extinguishing sentient beings' afflictions completely. Spirit cloud-like banner understands thus. All the oceans of karma in all worlds are shown by the Buddha to be the same without distinction. He universally helps beings to dispel karmic delusions. Spirit eyes of the call understands thus. The ground of all wisdom has no bounds. The Tathagata clearly sees and completely understands all the various thoughts of sentient beings. Observing worlds enters this vast great passage. The Buddha cultivated every practice and fully perfected innumerable paramitas. With great kindness and empathy, he benefits sentient beings. Spirit everywhere touring is liberated thus. Moreover, space ruling spirit, pure light shining everywhere, gain a passage into liberation of knowing the minds of all sentient beings in all destinies everywhere. Space ruling spirit, universally roaming far and wide, gain a passage into liberation of universally entering the Dharma realm. Space ruling spirit, creating auspicious wind, gain a passage into liberation of fathoming the boundless state of bodily characteristics. Space ruling spirit, dwelling secure and unhindered, gain a passage into liberation of being able to dispel the obstacles of karma and delusions that all sentient beings have. Space ruling spirit, far-reaching footsteps and wondrous call, gain a passage into liberation of universally contemplating and reflecting upon the sea of vast great practices. Space ruling spirit, unobstructed blaze of light, gain a passage into liberation of radiating the light of great compassion to universally rescue and protect all sentient beings from difficulty. Space ruling spirit, unobstructed supreme power, gain a passage into liberation of having the power of blessings and virtue to universally be involved in everything without attachment. Space ruling spirit, immaculate radiance, gain a passage into liberation of being able to make all sentient beings' mind pure and free from all coverings. Space ruling spirit, far-reaching wondrous sounds, gain a passage into liberation of universally beholding the 10 directions by the light of wisdom. Space ruling spirit, light pervading the 10 directions, gain a passage into liberation of appearing everywhere in all worlds without moving from one's original place. At that time, space ruling spirit, pure light shining everywhere, received the Buddha's awesome might, universally contemplated the multitudes of space ruling spirits, and spoke the following verse. The Tathagata's vast great eye, pure as empty space, sees every sentient being and understands them all. The Buddha's body's splendid light illumines the 10 directions pervasively. He appears to dwell in every location, universally roaming, observes this path. The Buddha's body is as space, uncreated, it cannot be grasped, being inapprehensible and empty of its own. Auspicious wind perceives thus. For limitless aeons the Tathagata vastly set forth the way of all sages to utterly erase the obstacles of all sentient beings. Universal light awakens to this door. I contemplate how the practices for body accumulated by the Buddha in the past were entirely to stabilize the world. Wondrous call practices this state on all the realms of sentient beings who toss in the sea of birth and death. The Buddha sends forth light to end all war. The spirit unobstructed sees thus. The treasury of pure merit and virtue acts as a field of blessings for the world, using wisdom to enlighten all. The spirit power awakens thus. Sentient beings are veiled in delusion. They drift and flow in dangerous paths. The Buddha sends forth light for their sake. Immaculate spirit does witness thus. His wisdom is unbounded, appearing in all lands. Its light illuminates the worlds. Wondrous sound sees the Buddha thus. To rescue sentient beings, the Buddha cultivates throughout the 10 directions. Such are his magnificent vows, universally manifesting, contemplates thus. Moreover, wind-ruling spirit, unobstructed radiance gain, a passage into liberation of universally entering the Buddha's Dharma and all that is worldly. Wind-ruling spirit, universally manifesting courageous karma, gain a passage into liberation, of making vast offerings to all the Buddhas, appearing in limitless lands. Wind-ruling spirit drifting and striking cloud banner, gain a passage into liberation, of using fragrant wind to eradicate all sentient beings' various illnesses. Wind-ruling spirit adornment with pure light, gain a passage into liberation, of universally producing good roots in all sentient beings and toppling the mountains of weighty obstructions. Wind-ruling spirit power to dry up water, gain a passage into liberation, of breaking through the boundless hosts of evil demons. Wind-ruling spirit loud and pervasive howling, gain a passage into liberation, of destroying the fears of all sentient beings forever. Wind-ruling spirit call of trailing branches, gain a passage into liberation, of entering the sea of eloquence concerning the true character of all dharmas. Wind-ruling spirit unimpeded travel everywhere, gain a passage into liberation, of employing a treasury of expedients to tame and subdue all sentient beings. Wind-ruling spirit manifold palaces, gain a passage into liberation, of entering the door of still dhyana samadhi and eradicating the darkness of deep delusion. Wind-ruling spirit, great light universally shining, gain a passage into liberation, of using the power of non-obstruction to accord with all sentient beings' actions. At that time, wind-ruling spirit, unobstructed radiance, received the Buddha's awesome spiritual power, universally contemplated the multitudes of wind-ruling spirits, and spoke the following verse. The Dharma of all Buddhas is of utmost profundity. With unobstructed skill and means, they enter everywhere, appearing always in each and every world. The Buddhas yet are formless, devoid of shape or sign. You may observe the Tathagata in the past, how in a single thought he worshipped countless Buddhas. To such courageous Bodhi practices as these, thus universally manifesting spirit awakened. Inconceivable the Tathagata's rescue of the world. Not one of his devices is used in vain. He fully frees all beings from all woe. Cloud banner spirit is liberated thus. Bereft of blessings, sentient beings suffer every agony, every mystified by weighty coverings and dense obstructions. The Buddha leads them all to liberation. The spirit pure light understands thus. Vast and great the Tathagata's powers of spiritual penetrations, they keep the demon hosts at bay. He has sundry skillful means for taming and subduing. Courageous power contemplates thus. With wondrous tones emanating from each pore, the Buddha sounds his call throughout the world. Fear, dread, and all other tribulations and pervasive howling spirit understands thus. The Buddha in the oceans of all lands constantly proclaims for inconceivable aeons that wondrous eloquence at the stage of a Tathagata is what call of trailing branches awakens to and understands. Into every expedient passage the Buddha's wisdom enters unhindered. His states are boundless and incomparable. This is a spirit travel everywhere's liberation. Boundless, the Tathagata's realm of being. Everywhere he manifests with skillful means, yet is still and silent, devoid of traces. This is a spirit manifold palaces passage into liberation. Cultivating every practice through oceans of aeons, the Tathagata perfects the powers fully, completely. He accords with worldly dharmas to respond to sentient beings. Universally shining spirit thus observes. Moreover, fire-ruling spirit treasury of universal flames, gain a passage into liberation, of totally dispelling all darkness in the world. Fire-ruling spirit banner of universally assembled light, gain a passage into liberation, of eradicating all sentient beings' delusions and their sufferings of aimless drifting and scorching torment. Fire-ruling spirit, great light universally shining, gain a passage into liberation, of a treasury of great compassion and steadfast power of blessings. Fire-ruling spirit, palaces of multitudes of wonders, gain a passage into liberation of contemplating the Tathagata's powers of spiritual penetrations and infinite manifestations. Fire ruling spirit, call of infinite light, gain a passage into liberation of discovering light that shines throughout boundless realms of space. Fire ruling spirit, all kinds of blazing eyes, gain a passage into liberation of perceiving a serene radiance derived from adornment with all kinds of blessings. Fire ruling spirit, palaces resembling Mount Sumeru in the 10 directions, gain a passage into liberation of extinguishing the blazing sufferings of all beings in all destinies in the worlds. Fire ruling spirit, awesome light of self-mastery, gain a passage into liberation of enlightening all beings in all worlds with ease. Fire ruling spirit, light illuminating the 10 directions, gain a passage into liberation of refuting forever all foolish attached views. Fire ruling spirit, thunder sound and lightning flash, gain a passage into liberation of losing a great boom of thunder resulting from fulfilling all vows. At that time, fire ruling spirit, treasury of universal flames, received the Buddha's awesome spiritual power, universally contemplated the multitudes of fire ruling spirits, and spoke the following verse. Contemplate the Tathagata's power of vigor, for inconceivable vast great kotis of aeons, he appears in the world to benefit beings, dispelling all obstructions of darkness. Sentient beings are obtuse and opinionated, their afflictions like a torrent and a blaze. With skillful means the guiding master quells them. Banner of universally assembled light awakens thus. His blessings and virtues like space are never ending. One seeks the limits and boundaries in vain. Such is the Buddha's unmoving power of great compassion. Light shining awakens to this and is delighted. I contemplate the Tathagata's cultivations, boundless, they stretch through oceans of aeons. Such displays of powers and spiritual penetrations, palaces of multitudes of wonders spirit understands. Unthinkable his achievements in cultivation for kotis of aeons. The quest for their boundaries ends in mystery. He proclaims the truth of all dharmas, delighting all. Infinite light spirit contemplates thus and sees the vast great multitudes in all the 10 directions. Behold, the Buddha manifests before them. His peaceful quiescent light illuminates the world. Wondrous flame spirit understands thus. In all the worlds the Muni appears. Seated within each palace, he sends a rain of infinitely vast great Dharma everywhere. This is a spiritual state of 10 direction spirit. Most profound is the wisdom of the Buddhas. Sovereign over dharmas they appear in the world. They completely clarify that which is true. Awesome light rejoices in this insight. The delusion of views casts a darkness that confuses. Sentient beings so they drift and revolve without cease. In order to teach them, the Buddha opens wondrous Dharma doors. Illumining direction spirit enters and awakens thus. Vast, great, inconceivable is his approach to vows. The powers and paramitas have been cultivated to purity. Everything now manifests according to his previous vows. Rumbling sound spirit understands thus. Moreover, water ruling spirit creating banners of clouds everywhere gain a passage into liberation of impartially benefiting all sentient beings with kindness. Water ruling spirit, sea tide cloud sound, gain a passage into liberation of being boundlessly adorned with Dharma. Water ruling spirit, wheel-like coal of wondrous colors, gain a passage into liberation of contemplating those to be taught and universally gathering them in with skill and means. Water ruling spirit, whirlpools of skillful expedients, gain a passage into liberation of universally proclaiming the profound states of all Buddhas. Water ruling spirit, immaculate accumulation of fragrance, gain a passage into liberation of universally displaying a grand, pristine radiance. Water ruling spirit, bridge to blessings and voice of light, gain a passage into liberation of purifying Dharma realms so that they are devoid of characteristics and a nature. Water ruling spirit, comfortable contentment, gain a passage into liberation of sharing an ocean of unending great compassion. Water ruling spirit, kindly sound of pure joy, gain a passage into liberation of acting as a treasury of great delight within the way places of assemblies of bodhisattvas. Water ruling spirit, universally manifesting majestic light, gain a passage into liberation of appearing everywhere through the unimpeded strength of enormous blessings and virtue. Water ruling spirit, roaring sound, pervading seas, gain a passage into liberation of contemplating all sentient beings and bringing forth expedients like emptiness to tame and subdue them. At that time, water ruling spirits creating banners of clouds everywhere received the Buddha's awesome spiritual power, universally contemplated the multitudes of water ruling spirits, and spoke the following verse. Countlessly many passages leading to purity and kindness are revealed within a single wondrous hallmark of the Thus Come One. The same is true of each and every hallmark. Therefore, those who gaze upon him never tire of their beholding. When cultivating in the past, the world-honored one made pilgrimages to all the Thus Come One's abodes. He practiced in various ways, never weary, never lax. Cloud sound enters such expedients as these. The Buddha traverses the 10 directions while remaining quiescent and unmoving, neither coming nor going. He responds to sentient beings. They perceive his teaching, thus understands will like whole. Inestimable are the states of the Thus Come One. Not a single sentient being can fathom them. His wondrous voice sounds throughout the 10 directions. Thus is the realm of practice of the spirit whirlpools of skills. Eternal, the world-honored one's radiance. Inconceivable, it fills the Dharma realm. He speaks Dharma to teach and save sentient beings. Spirit immaculate fragrance contemplates thus. The Tathagata is pure as space, formless without marks. He pervades the 10 directions, yet all the assemblies see him, excepting none. Light of blessing spirit, well contemplates thus. In ages past, the Buddha cultivated methods of great compassion. His mind vast, pervasive, commensurate with sentient beings. Cloud-like henceforth he appears in the world. This passage to liberation, contentment, understands. All in the lands of the 10 directions see the Tathagata seated on his throne, and open up and awaken to great Bodhi. Sound of joy enters thus. Nothing can hinder the actions of the Tathagata. He pervades all lands in the 10 directions. In place after place, he displays great spiritual penetrations. Universally manifesting, majestic light awakens thus. He cultivates boundless expedience, commensurate with and filling sentient beings many realms. His spiritual penetrations never cease their wondrous functionings. Roaring sound, pervading seas, enters thus. Moreover, ocean-ruling spirit, manifesting jeweled lights, gain a passage into liberation of impartially bestowing seas of blessings and virtues upon sentient beings, so they become physically adorned as if with myriad jewels. Ocean-ruling spirit, indestructible Vajra banner, gain a passage into liberation of using clever expedients to guard and protect sentient beings' good roots. Ocean-ruling spirit, untainted by defilement, gain a passage into liberation of draining the seas of sentient beings' afflictions. Ocean-ruling spirit, ever dwelling in waves, gain a passage into liberation of freeing sentient beings from the evil paths. Ocean-ruling spirit, auspicious jeweled moon, gain a passage into liberation of universally dispelling the somber darkness of dullness and delusion. Ocean-ruling spirit, wondrous floral dragon call, gain a passage into liberation, of eradicating suffering and bestowing happiness on those in the destinies. Ocean ruling spirit, universally maintaining flavor and light, gain a passage into liberation, of purifying and regulating the views and deluded natures of sentient beings. Ocean ruling spirit, jeweled blaze of floral light, gain a passage into liberation, of committing to the Bodhi resolve, the seed nature that produces all gems. Ocean ruling spirit, wondrous Vajra call, gain a passage into liberation, of the ocean of developing the meritorious qualities of an unmoving mind. Ocean ruling spirit, thunderous sound of ocean tides, gain a passage into liberation, of attaining the samadhi that serves as a gateway for universal entry to Dharma realms. At that time, ocean ruling spirit, manifesting jeweled lights, received the Buddha's awesome spiritual power, universally contemplated the multitudes of ocean ruling spirits, and spoke the following verse. During oceans of aeons, inconceivable and vast, he made offerings to all the dust come ones, bequeathing the merit and virtue to all beings everywhere. Thus he is upright and adorned beyond compare. In each and every world system he appears, knowing the disposition and propensities of each and every being. For their sakes he universally proclaims oceans of great Dharma. Solid banner joyfully awakens thus. Unfathomable, the great rain from the Dharma clouds, bestowed by multitudes of guiding masters in all worlds. It desiccates the limitless ocean of sufferings. Free from defilement, enters this Dharma door. Sentient beings are shrouded in afflictions. They flow and turn in the destinies, undergoing every sort of war. For them he discloses the realm of the dust come ones. Palaces in all water spirit enters this passage. Over inconceivable oceans of aeons, the Buddha cultivated all practices inexhaustible in number, rending forever the net of being's delusion. Jeweled moon understands and enters thus. The Buddha sees sentient beings forever fearful and alarmed. They flow and turn in birth and death's colossal sea. For them he shows the dust come one's unsurpassed way. Dragon call understands thus and rejoices. Inconceivable all Buddha's fears, at one with space and the entire Dharma realm. They cleanse all beings' nets of delusion, maintaining flavor thus proclaims and tells. Pure and inconceivable, the Buddha eye apprehends all and everything. The Buddha shows sentient beings many wondrous paths, thus awakens the mind of floral light. Massive, uncountable demon armies were all routed in an instant. Steadfast, unmoving minds are difficult to fathom. Wondrous Vajra call has such skill in means. Wondrous sounds in 10 directions everywhere proclaim, pervading all throughout the Dharma realm. This is the state of the dust come one samadhi. Sound of ocean tide spirit practices in this realm. Moreover, river ruling spirit universally initiating swift currents, gained a passage into liberation, of universally reigning boundless Dharma rain. River ruling spirit universally cleansing springs and torrents, gain a passage into liberation, of universally manifesting before all sentient beings and freeing them from their afflictions forever. River ruling spirit pure eyes apart from dust, gain a passage into liberation, of using expedients of great compassion to universally cleanse the filth of all sentient beings' delusions. River ruling spirit howling all throughout the 10 directions, gain a passage into liberation, of constantly emitting sounds that benefit beings. River ruling spirit universally rescuing and protecting sentient beings, gain a passage into liberation, of constantly giving rise to kindness and never vexing or harming any sentient being. Long ago, the dust come one, for the sake of sentient beings, cultivated boundless practices within the Dharma sea. Just as the torrential rain cools the summer heat, he pervasively quells the heat of sentient beings' afflictions. The Buddha, throughout inexpressibly limitless aeons in the past, by the light of his vows, purified the world, causing those grown ripe in disposition to awaken to the way. The Spirit universally cleansing awakened to this. River-ruling Spirit, clear light, devoid of heat, gain a passage into liberation, of universally displaying all good roots that are clear and cool. River-ruling Spirit, universally inspiring joy, gain a passage into liberation of perfecting the practice of giving, freeing all beings from stinginess and attachment forever. River-ruling Spirit, supreme banner of vast virtue, gain a passage into liberation of being a field of blessed happiness for all. River-ruling Spirit, light, illuminating all worlds, gain a passage into liberation of making all defiled beings pure and wrathful beings happy. River-ruling Spirit, radiant ocean of virtues, gain a passage into liberation of enabling all sentient beings to enter the ocean of liberation and constantly experience total happiness. At that time, River-ruling Spirit, universally initiating swift currents, received the Buddha's awesome spiritual power, universally contemplated the multitudes of river-ruling spirits and spoke the following verse. Bestowing great compassion and expedience for all beings equally, he manifests before them a constant guide, making possible the purge of foul afflictions. With profound delight, pure eyes observes this. The Buddha utters wondrous sounds for all to hear. Delighted sentient beings' hearts fill with joy. Unbounded woe is completely washed away. Howling everywhere, spirit is liberated thus. Long ago, the Buddha did cultivate for Bodhi, wishing to benefit beings through limitless aeons. Hence his brilliant light pervades the world. Protecting spirit thus recollects with happiness and joy. In ages past, the Buddha did cultivate for sentient beings, applying various expedients to bring them to maturity. Everywhere he purified the sea of blessings, casting out sufferings. Devoid of heat sees this, her heart rejoicing. Vast and inexhaustible is the gate of giving. It can bring benefit to all sentient beings. Those who perceive that are freed from stinginess and attachment, universal joy spirit awakens thus. In the past, the Buddha cultivated expedients for the sake of truth, accomplishing boundless oceans of merit and virtue. Of those who see him, none are not elated. Supreme banner, spirit's heart awakens and rejoices thus. Entirely purifying sentient beings' defilements, the Buddha transforms all malice into kindness. Thus his light radiates throughout space. River-ruling spirit, all worlds thus sees with gladness. The Buddha is a field of blessings, an ocean of merit and virtue, leading all to part with evil, leading all to great enlightenment. Radiant ocean spirit is liberated thus. Crop-ruling spirit, rubber strength, gain a passage into liberation of using all perfect Dharma doors to purify all realms of existence. Moreover, crop-ruling spirit, tender and delectable, gain a passage into liberation of giving all sentient beings the taste of Dharma, so that they may accomplish the Buddha body. Crop-ruling spirit, pure light of seasonal blooms, gain a passage into liberation of bringing tremendous joy and happiness to all sentient beings. Crop-ruling spirit, increasing essence and energy, gain a passage into liberation of seeing the Buddha's great compassion and his boundless power of spiritual penetrations and transformations. Crop-ruling spirit, universally producing roots and fruits, gain a passage into liberation of universally manifesting the Buddha's fields of blessings and enabling beings to plant indestructible seeds. Crop-ruling spirit, wonderfully adorned circular core, gain a passage into liberation of universally causing flowers of pure faith to blossom in sentient beings. Crop-ruling spirit moistening pure flowers, gain a passage into liberation of rescuing all beings out of great compassionate mercy, increasing their ocean of blessings and virtue. Crop-ruling spirit accomplishing wonderful fragrance, gain a passage into liberation of extensively explaining all methods of practice. Crop-ruling spirit delighting the beholder, gain a passage into liberation of enabling all beings in the Dharma realm to renounce laxness, worry, afflictions, and other evils, so that they all become pure. Crop-ruling spirit, immaculate light, gain a passage into liberation of contemplating the good roots of every sentient being, and speaking Dharma accordingly, thus gratifying and delighting the entire assembly. At that time, crop-ruling spirit, tender and delectable, received the Buddhist awesome spiritual power, universally contemplated the multitudes of crop-ruling spirits, and spoke the following verse. The thus come one of unsurpassed ocean of merit and virtue, appears everywhere as a bright lamp shining upon the world, rescuing and protecting all sentient beings whatsoever. He bestows peace and joy upon all, omitting not a single one. Boundless is the world-honored one's merit and virtue. Those who hear him do not do so in vain. They leave all suffering and feel perpetual joy. Seasonal blooms understands thus. All the powers perfected, the well-gone one, appears in the world adorned with meritorious virtues. All sentient beings are thoroughly tamed and subdued. Robust strength understands and attains this Dharma. Long ago, the Buddha cultivated an ocean of great compassion. His mind is intent upon each and every being in the world. Thus his spiritual penetrations know no bounds. Increasing essence and energy sees thus. Constantly the Buddha manifests throughout all worlds. None of his expedients are ever used in vain. He thoroughly purifies beings' delusions and afflictions. Universally producing spirit is liberated thus. An ocean of great wisdom in the world. The Buddha releases pure radiance that reaches absolutely everywhere. Hence all give rise to vast faith and understanding. A dawn call understands and enters thus. The thus come one beholding the world, gives rise to compassion. He manifests to benefit sentient beings, showing them the supreme path of serenity and bliss. Pure flower spirit is liberated thus. The pure practices cultivated by the well-gone one, he fully proclaimed beneath the Bodhi tree. Such teaching and transforming fills the 10 directions. Wonderful fragrant spirit thus hears and accepts. For those in the many worlds, the Buddha occasions the rise of freedom from distress, the upsurge of great joy. Whatever dispositions and desire, he purifies all. Delighting spirit awakens thus. The thus come one appearing in the many worlds, ascertains the inclinations of delight in all beings' hearts. Hence with skillful means he enhances their maturing. This is pure light spirit's passage to liberation. Moreover, medicine-ruling spirit auspicious gain a passage into liberation, of universally contemplating all sentient beings' minds and diligently gathering them in. Medicine-ruling spirit Chandana forest, gain a passage into liberation, of using light to gather in all sentient beings, and of causing those who see him not to do so in vain. Medicine-ruling spirit radiance of living dust, gain a passage into liberation, of using pure expedient means to extinguish all sentient beings' afflictions. Medicine-ruling spirit universal renown, gain a passage into liberation, of using great renown to expand the ocean of boundless good roots. Medicine-ruling spirit shining pause, gain a passage into liberation, of hoisting a great compassion banner that quickly elevates all states of illness. Medicine-ruling spirit pure destroyer of darkness, gain a passage into liberation, of curing all blind and dull beings, and purifying their wisdom eye, medicine ruling spirit universally roaring, gain a passage into liberation of proclaiming the Buddhist sounds and expounding the different meanings of all dharmas, medicine ruling spirit banner of light eclipsing the sun, gain a passage into liberation of acting as a good advisor for all sentient beings, causing all beholders to develop good roots. Medicine ruling spirit clear vision of the 10 directions, gain a passage into liberation of using a treasury of pure great compassion to expediently inspire faith and understanding in sentient beings. Medicine ruling spirit universally shining majestic radiance, gain a passage into liberation of expediently causing sentient beings to recollect the Buddhas, thereby eradicating all their sicknesses. At that time, medicine ruling spirit auspicious received the Buddha's awesome spiritual power, universally contemplated the multitudes of medicine ruling spirits, and spoke the following verse. The thus come one's wisdom is inconceivable. He completely understands the minds of all sentient beings. He can employ all sorts of expedient powers, extinguishing the measureless woes of the confused multitudes. The great hero's skillful expedients are hard to fathom. Nothing that he does is ever in vain. He is determined to rid sentient beings of all suffering. Chandana forest spirit awakens thus. Contemplate how the Dharma of all Buddhas is this way. Having cultivated diligently in measureless aeons past, they are detached from all that exists. Radiance of living dust enters this passage. The Buddha is hard to encounter in 100,000 aeons. If there are those who get to see him or hear his name, it's not in vain, and they will certainly benefit. Universal renowned spirit understands thus. The thus come one from every pore, emits bright light that extinguishes all disasters, putting an end to all the world's afflictions. Shining spirit enters this passage. All sentient beings are blinded by ignorance. The delusion and karma lead to endless kinds of suffering. The Buddha casts these out and reveals illuminating wisdom. Destroyer of darkness thus observes. The thus come one's single sound is unlimited. It can open all Dharma doors which are oceanic in extent. Sentient beings who hear it gain complete understanding. This is the liberation of loud sound. Observe the inconceivable wisdom of the Buddha. He universally appears in every destiny to rescue all beings. All who see him are transformed by his influence. This is the deep insight of banner eclipsing the sun. The thus come one's great compassion and expedience are oceanic. For the sake of benefiting those in the world he appears. He extensively explains the proper path for sentient beings. The spirit vision of the directions comprehends thus. The thus come one sends forth brilliant light everywhere. It illumines every being in the 10 directions without fail, causing them to recollect the Buddha and create merit and virtue. This is the passage into liberation of shining majestic radiance. Moreover, forest ruling spirit spreading flowers like clouds gain a passage into liberation of an oceanic treasury of vast, great, boundless wisdom. Forest ruling spirit helping trunks grow tall and pouring forth light, gain a passage into liberation of extensively cultivating purity on a universal scale. Forest ruling spirit producing sprouts and emitting radiance, gain a passage into liberation of causing sprouts of various kinds of pure faith to grow. Forest ruling spirit, auspicious pure leaves, gain a passage into liberation of amassing all kinds of purity, merit and virtue and adornment. Forest ruling spirit, overhanging resplendent treasury, gain a passage into liberation of constantly beholding the entire Dharma realm through a universal gateway of pure wisdom. Forest ruling spirit, wondrous adorned radiance, gain a passage into liberation of universally knowing the ocean of all sentient beings' practices and creating Dharma clouds. Forest ruling spirit, delightful thunder sound, gain a passage into liberation of enduring all unpleasant sounds and uttering pure sounds. Forest ruling spirit, pervasive glow and perfume, gain a passage into liberation of universally displaying in the 10 directions the state of vast, great practices cultivated in the past. Forest ruling spirit, wondrous light, unique and sparkling, gain a passage into liberation of using all dharmas of merit and virtue to benefit those in the world. Forest ruling spirit, luster and flavor of flowers and fruits, gain a passage into liberation of being adorned with the treasury of merit and virtue gained through enabling everyone to see the Buddhas appear and to recollect them with constant reverence and never forget them. At that time, forest ruling spirit, spreading flowers like clouds, received the Buddha's awesome spiritual power, universally contemplated the multitudes of forest ruling spirits, and spoke the following verse. In the past, the Buddha cultivated practices for Bodhi, achieving perfect blessings, virtue, and wisdom. Fully endowed with all of the powers, he emerges in the world with resplendent light. The thus come one in the past, universally purified, limitless ways of compassion, equal to the number of sentient beings, and so he can benefit beings in the world. The spirit helping trunks grow tall understands thus. If beings see the Buddha but once, he will surely lead them into the sea of deep faith, universally showing them the path of the thus come ones. This is the liberation of the spirit wondrous sprouts. The merit and virtue, accumulated in a single pore, could not completely be described in oceans of aeons. The expedient means of the Buddhists are inconceivable. Pure Leaves understands this profound meaning. I recollect how the thus come one in the past made offerings to limitless Buddhas in lands like dust motes. Before each and every Buddha, his wisdom gradually grew bright. The spirit resplendent treasury understands thus. In a single thought, the thus come one fully apprehends the ocean of the actions of all sentient beings. Such vast, great, unobstructed wisdom is understood by the spirit wondrous adorned. The thus come one's tranquil, exquisite voice proclaims forever, evoking matchless great happiness in everyone. Comprehending according to their inclinations, each becomes enlightened. This is the method or practice of thunder sound. Manifesting great spiritual powers, the thus come one extends throughout every land in the 10 directions, enabling all to see the Buddha's past cultivation. Pervasive glow and perfume enters this passage. Sentient beings are deceitful and do not cultivate virtue. Confused, they sink and flounder in birth and death. For them he elucidates all principles of wisdom. The spirit wondrous light perceives thus. The Buddha, for beings laden with karmic obstructions, appears but once every hundreds of millions of aeons. At other times he is still visible to them in thought after thought. The spirit luster and flavor thus observes. Moreover, mountain ruling spirit blooming jewel peak gain a passage into liberation of entering the light of the samadhi of great tranquility. Mountain ruling spirit flower grove wondrous top knot gain a passage into liberation of bringing an inconceivable number of sentient beings to maturity through the cultivation of good roots of kindness. Mountain ruling spirit lofty banner universally shining gain a passage into liberation of contemplating the minds of all sentient beings to see what they enjoy, and then adorning and purifying all faculties. Mountain ruling spirit, immaculate, pure top knot, gain a passage into liberation of being diligent and vigorous throughout boundless oceans of aeons without growing weary or lax. Mountain ruling spirit, light shining through the 10 directions, gain a passage into liberation of using the light of boundless merit and virtue to universally awaken beings. Mountain ruling spirit, light of great strength, gain a passage into liberation of gaining full personal maturity and then enabling sentient beings to renounce foolish and confused behavior. Mountain ruling spirit, universally supreme, awesome brilliance, gain a passage into liberation of eradicating all suffering until none is left. Mountain ruling spirit, orb of subtle concentrated light, gain a passage into liberation of using light to expound the Dharma, revealing the merit and virtue of all the dust-come ones. Mountain ruling spirit, universal eye, seeing the manifest, gain a passage into liberation of causing all sentient beings to grow in good roots, even in their dreams. Mountain ruling spirit, solid Vajra eyes, gain a passage into liberation of making appear an ocean of boundless great meanings. At that time, mountain ruling spirit blossoms all around, received the Buddhist awesome spiritual power, contemplated all the multitudes of mountain ruling spirits, and spoke the following verse. Boundless supreme practices cultivated in the past now yield spiritual penetrations beyond measure, extensively opening Dharma doors in number like motes of dust. The Buddha brings all sentient beings to deep, joyful awakening. His body, adorned with period hallmarks, pervades all worlds. Light issues from his pores, purifying everything. With expedients of great kindness he instructs all. Flower grove wondrous top knot awakens to this passage. The Buddha's body appears everywhere boundless, spreading to fill the worlds of the 10 directions. His faculties are adorned and pure, delighting all who see him. Lofty banner understands and enters this Dharma. He practiced intensely for aeons without growing lax. Untainted by worldly things, he resembles space. With various skillful means he transforms the flocks of beings. The one named jewel topknot awakens to this Dharma door. Blind and in the dark, sentient beings enter dangerous paths. Out of pity the Buddha shines his light upon them, waking everyone in the world from their slumbers. Upon realizing this, awesome light is jubilant. He cultivated extensively in all realms of existence, making offerings to Buddhas as countless as dust motes in lands. Upon seeing him, sentient beings bring forth great vows. Great strength understands and enters this ground. He witnesses the misery of sentient beings in transmigration, perpetually caught up in all their karmic hindrances. With wisdom's radiance he extinguishes their woes. The spirit universally supreme is liberated thus. Wondrous sounds issue from each and every pore, praising the Buddhas in accord with sentient beings' hearts. This lasts for measureless aeons throughout the 10 directions. Orb of light enters this passage. The Buddha appears all throughout the 10 directions. Using various expedients, he speaks the wonderful Dharma. With an ocean of practices, he benefits beings widely. The spirit seeing the manifest awakens thus. Dharma doors as boundless and measureless as the ocean are spoken with a single sound, yet understood by all. The Buddha expounds endlessly throughout every aeon. Vajra eyes enters this expedient means. Moreover, earth-ruling spirit, pure flower of universal virtue, gain a passage into liberation of universally contemplating all sentient beings in thought after thought with a compassionate heart. Earth-ruling spirit, solid blessings and adornment, gain a passage into liberation of universally making appear all sentient beings' powers of blessings and virtue. Earth-ruling spirit, wondrous flowers, ornamenting trees, gain a passage into liberation of universally entering all dharmas and producing the adornments of all Buddha lands. Earth-ruling spirit, universally scattering the myriad gems, gain a passage into liberation of cultivating all kinds of samadhis, enabling sentient beings to cast off obstructive defilements. Earth-ruling spirit, pure eyes contemplating time, gain a passage into liberation of enabling all sentient beings to always travel about in joyful play. Earth-ruling spirit, golden color and wondrous eyes, gain a passage into liberation of displaying all kinds of pure bodies to tame and subdue sentient beings. Earth-ruling spirit, fragrant shining hairs, gain a passage into liberation of understanding the sea of merit and virtue and the tremendous awesome power of all Buddhas. Earth-ruling spirit, delightful still sounds, gain a passage into liberation of universally gathering in the sea of all sentient being sounds of speech. Earth-ruling spirit, top-knot of exquisite flowers, gain a passage into liberation of perceiving the immaculate nature, filling up the lands of Buddhas. Earth-ruling spirit, universally supported by Vajra, gain a passage into liberation of seeing the universal appearance of those who are gathered in and supported by the Dharma wheels of all Buddhas. At that time, earth-ruling spirit, pure flower of universal virtue, received the Buddha's awesome spiritual power, universally contemplated the multitudes of earth-ruling spirits, and spoke the following verse. The thus come one in thought after thought in the past, employed ineffable means of great kindness and compassion, cultivating in this way without end, he thereby attained a solid, indestructible body. Sentient beings and bodhisattvas in the 3 periods of time, as well as all the blessings accumulated, are fully manifest in the thus come one's pause. Blessings and adornment sees this and rejoices. Within a samadhi that is vast, great, and tranquil, unborn, undying, neither coming nor going, the Buddha adorns and purifies lands and instructs beings. This is the liberation of the spirit tree's flowers. The Buddha cultivated every sort of practice in the past to help sentient beings eradicate their heavy obstacles. Earth-ruling spirit, universally scattering the myriad gems, sees this liberation and gives rise to joy. The realm of the thus come one has no bounds. In thought after thought, he appears everywhere in all worlds. Earth-ruling spirit, pure eyes contemplating time, observes the Buddha's deeds and rejoices in his heart. Wondrous sounds, limitless and inconceivable, universally extinguish afflictions of sentient beings. The spirit golden color eyes awakens to this and sees the Buddha's boundless supreme merit and virtue. The Buddha manifests transformations of all shapes and forms, filling up the 10 directions of the Dharma realm. Fragrant shining hairs often observes the Buddha, universally transforming sentient beings in this manner. His wondrous voice extends throughout the 10 directions, speaking to the multitudes for measureless aeons. Having understood in her heart the earth spirit delightful, feels deep reverence and joy in listening to the Buddha. Fragrant, blazing clouds issue from the Buddha's paws, and according to sentient beings' wishes pervade the world. All who behold this become mature. Coiled flowers contemplates thus, sturdy and indestructible as Vajra, immovable as Mount Sumeru. Thus does the Buddha's body dwell in the world, universally supported, sees this and rejoices. Moreover, city ruling spirit jewel peak illumination, gain a passage into liberation of expediently benefiting sentient beings. City ruling spirit wondrously adorning palaces, gain a passage into liberation of knowing sentient beings' faculties and teaching and transforming them to bring them to maturity. City ruling spirit pure jewels of joy, gain a passage into liberation of constantly delighting in enabling all sentient beings to enjoy blessings and virtue. City ruling spirit pure and free from worry, gain a passage into liberation of a treasury of great compassion that delivers beings from all fear. City ruling spirit flower lamps and blazing eyes, gain a passage into liberation of universal understanding and great wisdom. City ruling spirit clear manifestation of blazing banners, gain a passage into liberation of expediently manifesting everywhere. City ruling spirit flourishing blessings, awesome brightness, gain a passage into liberation of universally contemplating all sentient beings and helping them to cultivate a vast sea of blessings and virtue. City ruling spirit body of pure radiance, gain a passage into liberation of enlightening all foolish and dim-witted sentient beings. City ruling spirit fragrant call, adornment, gain a passage into liberation of contemplating how the Dust Come One's sovereign power pervasively tames sentient beings in all worlds. City ruling spirit jewel peak bright eyes, gain a passage into liberation of using brilliant light to smash the mountain of all sentient beings' obstructions. At that time, city ruling spirit jewel peak illumination received the Buddha's awesome spiritual power, contemplated all the multitudes of city ruling spirits, and spoke the following verse. The guiding master is thus inconceivable. His light pervasively illumines the 10 directions. Every sentient being sees the Buddha appear before him. Innumerable beings are taught, transformed, and brought to maturity. Every sentient being's disposition is unique. The Buddha understands them all without exception. City ruling spirit wondrously adorning palaces enters this Dharma door and rejoices in her heart. The Dust Come One cultivated through measureless aeons, protecting and upholding the Dharma of past Buddhas, constantly focusing on reverent practice brought him joy. The city spirit wondrous jewels awakens to this passage. The Dust Come One has long had the ability to rid all sentient beings of fear and terror, and to feel constant kindness and compassion for them. The spirit free from worry has this joyful awakening. The wisdom of the Buddha is vast and boundless. Like the void, it cannot be measured. The city spirit flower eyes has this blissful insight and learns the Dust Come One's wondrous wisdom. The Dust Come One's forms are equal to the number of sentient beings. According to their inclinations, all are caused to see him. Clear manifestation of blazing banners realizes this. Practicing this expedient makes her happy. The Dust Come One cultivated a sea of many blessings, pure, vast, great, and without boundaries. Blessings and virtue banner light, contemplates and understands this passage with joy. Deluded beings in the realms of existence are like those born blind in the world who see nothing at all. For their benefit, the Buddha appears in the world, pure radiant spirit enters this passage. The thus come one's self-mastery is boundless. Like a cloud it spreads pervasively through all worlds. He even appears in dreams to tame and subdue beings. Fragrant banner thus observes. Dark and deluded sentient beings are as if blind, shrouded by various obstacles and coverings. The Buddhist light shines through, opening their wisdom. Jeweled peak enters thus. Moreover, Bodhimanda spirit banner of pure adornment gain a passage into liberation, of manifesting great power of vows, to make offerings of vast great adornments to Buddhas. Bodhimanda spirit Sumeru jeweled brilliance gain a passage into liberation, of appearing before all sentient beings and accomplishing vast practices of Bodhi. Bodhimanda spirit thunderclap and banner-like characteristics gain a passage into liberation, of according with what sentient beings like, and enabling them to see the Buddha speak Dharma for them in their dreams. Bodhimanda spirit raining down flowers, wondrous eyes, gain a passage into liberation, of raining down all kinds of adornments made of a myriad treasures that are hard to give up. Bodhimanda spirit pure blazing form gain a passage into liberation, of displaying marvelously adorned Bodhimandas for the sake of extensively transforming sentient beings and bringing them to maturity. Bodhimanda spirit flower garlands draped from the core gain a passage into liberation, of speaking Dharma according to beings' faculties, so that they produce proper thoughts. Bodhimanda spirit raining down jeweled ornaments gain a passage into liberation, of everywhere raining down boundless aspects of happiness by means of eloquence. Bodhimanda spirit heroic fragrance and vision gain a passage into liberation, of extensively praising the merit and virtue of the Buddhas. Bodhimanda spirit Vajra-colored cloud gain a passage into liberation, of making appear trees of boundless shapes and colors to adorn Bodhimanda. Bodhimanda spirit lotus flower brilliance gain a passage into liberation, of being still and serene beneath the Bodhi tree, and yet pervading the 10 directions. Bodhimanda spirit dazzling wondrous light gain a passage into liberation, of manifesting the various powers of the thus come one. At that time, Bodhimanda spirit banner of pure adornment received the Buddha's awesome spiritual power, universally contemplated the multitudes of Bodhimanda spirits, and spoke the following verse. I recollect how the thus come one, in ages past, cultivated throughout limitless aeons, making offerings to every Buddha appearing in the world, he accrued merit and virtue as great as space. The Buddha did practice infinite acts of giving, equal in number to fine dust motes in measureless lands. The Bodhi spirit named Sumeru brilliant illumination recollects the well-gone one with jubilation. The thus come one's forms are endless. His transformations circulate through all lands. Even in dreams he makes constant appearances. Thunder Banner is delighted to see this. In the practice of giving during measureless aeons in the past, the Buddha gave an oceanic quantities of eyes, which are so hard to give. He practiced giving in this manner for the sake of sentient beings. Wondrous eyes spirit awakens thus and rejoices. His boundless forms, like precious, resplendent clouds, appear in Bodhi places throughout all worlds. Bodhimanda spirit, pure blazing form, happily observes the Buddha's self-mastery. Boundless is the ocean of sentient beings' deeds. The Buddha reigns a Dharma reign everywhere, dispelling delusions according to their faculties and understanding. Flower garlands awakens thus with delight. Measureless Dharma doors, each distinct in meaning, The Buddha can enter with eloquence like a vast ocean. Bodhimanda spirit raining down jeweled ornaments, always recollects thus in thought after thought. Throughout all lands unspeakable in number, the Buddha used the epitome of praises to laud all Buddhas, thus achieving renown and great merit. The spirit heroic vision thus recalls. Boundless trees of various shapes and forms all appear beneath the Bodhi tree, the king of trees. Vajra-colored cloud awakened and made this passage, and joyfully constantly beholds the tree of the way. Just as the boundaries of the 10 directions are beyond our grasp, so too is the wisdom of the Buddha seated in the Bodhimanda. Lotus flowers that brilliance gives rise to pure faith, and enters this liberation with deep delight. Marvelous sounds issue from everything in the Bodhimanda, praising the Buddha's inconceivable pure strength, and bringing to success all practices at the level of planting causes. Wondrous-like spirit hears and receives thus. Moreover, spirit of foot travel, jeweled seal hand, gain a passage into liberation, of raining down myriad treasures everywhere, and producing vast happiness. Spirit of foot travel, lotus light, gain a passage into liberation, of manifesting a Buddha's body, seated upon the throne of lotuses of all colors and lights, delighting all beholders. Spirit of foot travel, supreme floral call, gain a passage into liberation, of establishing Bodhimandas in thought after thought for the assemblies of all thus come ones. Spirit of foot travel gathering in good views, gain a passage into liberation, of completely subduing boundless sentient beings. Each time one lifts one's foot to take a step, spirit of foot travel, star banner of wondrous jewels, gain a passage into liberation, of in every thought manifesting all kinds of radiant nets of lotuses that rain down a multitude of treasures, out of which come wondrous sounds. Spirit foot travel happily making wondrous sounds, gain a passage into liberation, of producing a boundless sea of happiness. Spirit of foot travel, radiant chandana tree, gain a passage into liberation, of using fragrant breezes to universally enlighten the assemblies of all Bodhimandas. Spirit of foot travel, lotus brilliance, gain a passage into liberation, of radiating light from every pore, broadcasting the wonderful sounds of Dharma. Spirit of foot travel, subtle radiance, gain a passage into liberation, of having her whole body radiate various nets of light that illumine everything. Spirit of foot travel, gathering lovely flowers, gain a passage into liberation, of enlightening all sentient beings, so that they bring forth an ocean of good roots. At that time, spirit of foot travel, jeweled seal hand, received the Buddha's awesome spiritual power, universally contemplated the multitudes of spirits of foot travel, and spoke the following verse. The Buddha cultivated for measureless aeons, making offerings to every thus come one. He constantly rejoiced, never growing weary. His practice of joy was deep and vast like an ocean. In every thought, immeasurable spiritual powers bring into being lotuses of various fragrances. Buddhas seated upon them travel everywhere. Scarlet-like spirit observes all of this. Thus is the Dharma of each Buddha, thus come one. His extensive assemblies pervade the 10 directions. He displays inconceivable spiritual powers everywhere. Supreme floral call spirit completely sees and understands all of this. In every place throughout the lands of the 10 directions, whether raising his foot or setting it down, he brings all beings to accomplishment. Good view spirit realizes this with joy. The Buddha displays as many bodies as there are sentient beings. Each and every body fills up the Dharma realm. All of them radiate pure light and rain down a myriad treasures. Star Banner enters this liberation. The realm of the Dust Come One is boundless. He sends down Dharma rain that fills all places. The assembled multitudes behold the Buddha in delight. Wondrous sound thus observes. The range of the Buddha's voice equals the void. Every kind of sound is encompassed therein. It subdues all sentient beings without exception. Chandana hears and accepts this. Transformed sounds come out of every pore, proclaiming the names of all Buddhas of the 3 periods of time. Those who hear are filled with happiness. Lotus brilliant spirit thus perceives. The Buddha's body undergoes inconceivable transformations. In every step his forms are like the ocean. He shows himself according to sentient beings' wishes. This is the attainment or subtle radiance. Displaying great spiritual powers throughout the 10 directions, the Buddha brings all beings to enlightenment. Myriads of lovely flower spirits seize this Dharma, and having seen it feels tremendous delight. Moreover, multi-bodied spirits, state of pure joy, gain a passage into liberation of recollecting the sea of the Buddha's past vows. Multi-bodied spirit, light illumining the 10 directions, gain a passage into liberation of radiating light universally upon boundless worlds. Multi-bodied spirit, taming and subduing with the ocean-like sound, gain a passage into liberation of using a great voice to enlighten all sentient beings, making them happy and subdue. Multi-bodied spirit, call adorned with pure flowers, gain a passage into liberation of developing a body that is omnipresent like space. Multi-bodied spirit, limitless aspects of awesome comportment, gain a passage into liberation of displaying the states of Buddhas to all sentient beings. Multi-bodied spirit, supreme light adornment, gain a passage into liberation of replenishing the physical strength of all starving and exhausted sentient beings. Multi-bodied spirit, pure light and clouds of fragrance, gain a passage into liberation of ridding all sentient beings of defiling afflictions. Multi-bodied spirit, protecting and gathering in, gain a passage into liberation of transforming the delusion and demonic karma of all sentient beings. Multi-bodied spirit, universally manifesting to gather in and transform, gain a passage into liberation of universally manifesting an adorned appearance in the palaces of all world leaders. Multi-bodied spirit, unmoving radiance, gain a passage into liberation of gathering in all sentient beings and causing them to produce pure good roots. At that time, multi-bodied spirit, state of pure joy, received the Buddha's awesome spiritual power, contemplated the multitudes of multi-bodied spirits, and spoke the following verse. I recall that as many aeons ago, as the motes of dust in Sumeru, wondrous like Buddha appeared in the world honored one, in the presence of that Dust Come One, resolved to make offerings to each and every Buddha. The Dust Come One's body radiates bright light. His light fills the entire Dharma realm, missing no place. When sentient beings encounter it, their minds are tamed. The spirit illumining directions thus perceives. The Dust Come One's voice rocks the lands of the 10 directions. All his speech and sounds are full and perfect, universally enlightening beings without exception. Hearing this, taming and subduing rejoices in her heart. The Buddha's body is pure and ever tranquil. He displays the myriad forms everywhere, yet is devoid of characteristics. In this way, he pervasively dwells in all worlds. The spirit pure flowers enters thus. The guiding master is inconceivable like this. He is seen by sentient beings according to their wishes, perhaps sitting or walking, or sometimes standing, limitless aspects of awesome comportment. awakens to this passage. It is difficult to encounter Buddha in the 100,000 aeons. He comes forth to benefit beings with mastery and ease, delivering all the world's beings from poverty's woes. Supreme light adornment enters this state. From the gaps between the dust come one's teeth. Brilliant blazing clouds like fragrant lamps issued forth, extinguishing the delusions of all sentient beings. Immaculate cloud spirit thus observe. Sentient beings defiling delusions become heavy obstructions. They constantly drift and wander along demonic byways. The dust come one reveals the path of liberation, protecting and supporting, awakens thus and enters. I contemplate the dust come one's power of self-mastery. His light spreads throughout the Dharma realm, filling it entirely. Dwelling in the royal palace, he transforms sentient beings. This is a state of universally manifesting spirit. Sentient beings confused by falseness suffer a myriad woes. The Buddha is in their midst, constantly rescuing and protecting them. He helps them to dispel delusions and develop joyful hearts. Unmoving radiant spirit thus observes. Moreover, Vajra-wielding spirit, wondrous Narayana physic, gain a passage into liberation of seeing the dust come one manifest bodies of boundless forms. Vajra-wielding spirit, banner as swift as the sun, gain a passage into liberation of seeing how every hair on the Buddhist body displays assaulted clouds of light, just like the sun. Vajra-wielding spirit, flower light of Mount Sumeru, gain a passage into liberation of conjuring up measureless bodies and tremendous spiritual transformations. Vajra-wielding spirit, pure thundercloud, gain a passage into liberation of uttering boundless sounds that accord with the categories of beings. Vajra-wielding spirit, celestial lord with splendid arms, gain a passage into liberation of manifesting as all worldly leaders and enlightening sentient beings. Vajra-wielding spirit, delightful brightness, gain a passage into liberation of expounding all the different entrances into the Buddha Dharma, so that they are fully understood without exception. Vajra-wielding spirit, great tree, thunderclap, gain a passage into liberation of using delightful ornaments together in all three spirits. Vajra-wielding spirit, brilliant lion king, gain a passage into liberation of being fully endowed with and understanding the adornments accumulated from vast blessings. Vajra-wielding spirit, covered, blazing auspicious eyes, gain a passage into liberation of universally contemplating the evil thoughts of sentient beings and appearing before them in a majestic body. Vajra-wielding spirit, lotus gem-like core, gain a passage into liberation of universally raining down all bodhisattva adornments and money top-knots. At that time, Vajra-wielding spirit, wondrous form, Narayana, received the Buddha's awesome spiritual power, contemplated all the multitudes of Vajra-wielding spirits, and spoke the following verse. You ought to contemplate the Dharma King. The Dharma of the Dharma King is thus. His physical appearance has no bounds, as it universally manifests in all worlds. Every hair on the Buddha's body emits inconceivable nets of light, which like the sun, pure and clear, universally illumine the lands of the 10 directions. The dust come one spiritual powers pervade the entire Dharma realm. Before all sentient beings, he manifests infinitely many bodies. No one in the 10 directions fails to hear the sound of the dust come one speaking Dharma. It satisfies the hearts of sentient beings according to their categories. The multitudes see Muni, the honored one, dwelling in his palace in the world. For the sake of all beings, he expounds and propagates the great Dharma. In the whirlpools of the Dharma ocean, all their different meanings and various expedient doors are endlessly proclaimed. With boundless great expedient means, the Buddha responds to those in all regions. Upon encountering the pure light of the Buddha, all beings see the dust come one's body. Having made offerings to all Buddhas in billions of lands as numerous as dust motes, he has merit like space and is admired and esteemed by all. His spiritual powers are impartial. He appears in all lands. Peacefully dwelling in sublime Bodhimandas, he manifests before all sentient beings. His blazing clouds shine upon all worlds. Perfectly formed of many kinds of light, they reach every place in the Dharma realm, displaying the aspects of the Buddha's practice.